Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Security Repo Podcast. Thanks very much for tuning in and thanks for sharing this with your friends, liking, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I have an awesome guest today that I have known for a little bit here in the security community. Alyssa Miles is a product marketing leader passionate about making security easy for developers, and I like that. She works over at CyberArk, where she drives developer experience initiatives that help platform engineers, DevOps teams, and cloud security pros adopt identity tools that fit naturally into their workflows. She's also leading efforts to grow and engage CyberArk's developer community. When she's not working, she's probably driving her 10-year-old daughter to ballet or hanging out at a brewery. Hopefully not at the same time. You're not taking your daughter to ballet.
Never at the same time. I promise, never at the same time.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you as well. I haven't seen you since we were in Las Vegas, B-Sides Las Vegas, and you were there did you go to DEF CON as well?
Listen, it was my very first Hackers summer camp experience, so I really went all in. I started at B-Sides. Thanks again for the invite. It was amazing. And then I hit Black Hat after that, and then I was at DEF CON after that.
So you hit three of the big four there, because the Diana Initiative is the other big one that happens that week. That's a shorter conference. So maybe next year you can hit all four. I've never done Black Hat myself. I've only ever done B-Sides and DEF CON. But how was your B-Sides experience? That was your first B-Side, correct?
It was my first B-Sides. And I think my biggest takeaway was probably what a welcoming community it was. I got to have so many good conversations about developer engagement, and everyone was so wonderful to talk to.
Well, the community is very welcoming. It's one of the things I like about the security community. I've been involved in many tech communities over the years, and it was easy to walk into the security community because they're not all uptight about use this framework, use this language. It's, hey, how do we keep things safe? And that's a nice general conversation to have. So curious to how you got into the world of security, since we're talking about security communities. How did you get into managing and working with communities?
So my community experience did begin at CyberArk. It was about 3 years ago now. Since I started, leadership has really graciously allowed me to dive into a lot of our emerging programs and spaces. So like anything where we're really trying to do a culture shift or do something different. And I'm not sure, like at the moment, if it's my knack for innovation or just like my chronic disregard for protocol, but it's made it pretty fun. So I worked first on our secure cloud launch, and then our Wiz integration launch, and then our PLG experience. And like through those three separate launches, I really found out that I love working with our platform teams and developer audiences. And it really highlighted a need for us to step back and ensure that we were supporting the group. So I was really excited to be the one to do it. And that's how I got into it.
I absolutely love working in a role where I can support other people and make sure that they are being successful. That's kind of how I fell into the world of developer advocacy, at this point over a decade ago. I was just trying to help people figure stuff out. So what were you doing before you got into the community then?
So I started CyberArk, like solutions side of marketing. And then before that, I was agency side. So I specialized in content strategy for getting tech startups acquired by larger companies. And then prior to that, I was like brand positioning in agency world for community-driven organizations. So I've always loved working with different communities and making sure we're meeting those needs.
I'm always curious to how people got into security and that journey. So there's a lot of people, it sounds like we're both, we're working on something else, and security opened the door, and here we are talking about it. So curious, what have been challenges of working with the security community, working with, moving from agency life to working with people that are, paranoid, wear tinfoil hats and
I'm gonna say skeptical. Okay, we're rebranding the paranoid as skeptical. So I think specifically for communities, there are 3 challenges that are to like building any community, and so it's like, how do you connect with them? How do you earn their trust? And then how do you empower them to do what you want them to do? And so for my community, it's like, how do we empower them to build more? And I'll say, so like thinking through specifically with the community of security folks, what I love about them is like we refuse to be used. And that presents a marketing challenge and it presents a community building challenge. So it's like when it comes to content and engagement, the golden rule for me is when marketing is bad, it feels like marketing. And then when marketing is good, it feels like enablement. Like the bottom line is my content serving a purpose to the user? Is it or am I like trying to shove somebody into a traditional B2B funnel? And that's what you don't want to do, because with developers, we're building these long-term relationships and we can't be successful in engaging them by treating them like typical leads.
That's actually how developer relations started, was just the premise that developers hate being marketed to. And I think security people are the same way. Like, yeah, obviously there's a role for marketing. I'm not saying let's get rid of all the marketers because, well, I wouldn't have a job right now. But we need to frame it in a way that's relatable, engaging, and really drives adoption at the end of the day. That's what Phil Legetter wrote really seminal work on this a few years ago, like what we do in DevRel. But it's that same idea of like, let's get away from traditional marketing funnels and into like, how do we actually empower people to use the stuff?
Exactly. Yeah, I love that point.
What are specific objections or obstacles that people have thrown back out at you? Like, hey, this sounds engaging, but I don't have time for this. This doesn't seem applicable to my day job. What are you hearing?
I think that's a completely fair question and a fair objection. But I think our biggest obstacle is like proving that being a part of this community is more valuable than just doing something yourself. And I think it's really similar to product ideology in that way. Like, could you just build this solution cheaper, easier, better, safer yourself? So like what it looks like for us is, can you get that real-time community support beyond what docs offer? Or are the docs offering what you need in the first place? Do you see like the company engagement side, valuable community answers? And if the company isn't prioritizing engaging the developer community itself in return, it's like, why bother? Because it's like in any relationship, the investment needs to be in the same, like on both sides. And then I think the other obstacle that we really see is like, are we offering a perspective that goes beyond a user's own knowledge base? Are we giving them something that's deeply technical, useful content? And then when we are getting questions and we are getting that conversation and engagement within communities, is there follow through? Are you seeing those endpoints be realized like through product? Are loops being closed? Are you answering like PRs in GitHub? Is the participation worth your time?
I'm curious on the more personal level, though. Do you ever hear people say like, well, this sounds great, but I don't think I can contribute. I don't think, this sounds too technical for me. I'm still too much of a beginner. I'm not sure my technical chops are up to, being part of this.
I think technical gap has honestly been less of an issue within most of our communities. I think we're really lucky at CyberArk too, because like, let's say we're talking about like our customer Discord, we have so many levels of experience within there. And so I don't think that people are necessarily anti-contribution from that perspective. I think it's more of a time thing, like you brought up. And within like our customer communities, I think it's ensuring like timely response for that kind of community.
So I just realized we've been talking about community a lot, but that can take so many shapes and forms, from like the B-sides where we're hanging out and we're going to sessions and hands-on stuff. So what does that look like to you? What are the pieces that make a community, in your opinion?
That's such a good question. I think like if we go back to obstacles and challenges, like answering what is community. So I think we live now in a time of unbundled community where the onus is on us to make sure that we are hitting our traditional, like, this is our GitHub base. this is our customer community base. These are our online communities. But we have to go and actively seek out where our developers are so that we can see like how they're working together without our control. So when I talk about community, I'm trying to think of it through the full developer experience lens that comes from where they're finding out about us, when we're onboarding them, when they're in product, when we're engaging with users through their own self-made channels, like our customer Discord channel that we don't run that. We just have folks that are invested and are answering those questions. And then, of course, our online community that's like, you sign in and you talk to us and you have to be like a customer for that.
So I have a couple last follow-up questions before we move on to the final portion of our show, and that is the advice for people out there in the communities. So I guess there's two groups I'm asking about. I'll ask the first one, and then we'll come back and ask the second one. The first one is people that are thinking of starting a community. Like, I got a project going. I got people that I know are touching my tools out there. What advice would you give them?
I was like cycling through ideas for this particular question because I think you can go really tactical with the answer. And I was like, okay, well, this is how we are like using our in-product data to identify content gaps and improve user experience. But I think that varies so much. So if I'm like stepping outside and thinking through how to answer this question, I want to reference like an incredible DEF CON presentation actually that I heard. So, Richard Thiem had this incredible session called Thinking Like a Hacker in the Age of AI. And basically it summarized how hacker mindset is the key to surviving the AI revolution. And he had so many points that I think summarize the essence of what you want to do when you're building a community. And that is to think like a hacker. His first point was to build in heresy, all truths begin with blasphemy. And essentially it was this call to check your assumptions so you can uncover new information. And I think when you're organizing a new technical community, you've got a lot of people who are really passionate about something. And it's so easy to prioritize your own experience, or like we've heard this internally, but when you're building from a community, I think you need to come from a place of listening first and then adjusting strategy from there. And I'm sure you've experienced that like 1,000 times. We have this assumption as a company that's organizing this community, and we can get it wrong. And then I think the second point that he had made was hacking is about seeing systems and finding holes. So when I'm looking at organizing our community or our full developer experience, I'm not just looking at like the comments on our community forums. I'm looking at what they're going through from an end-to-end perspective and where are the holes that our internal systems are failing. So like from a community member finding out who we are, they're reading up on us, they're interacting with our customer service team, using the product itself. Like, how can we make it easier? Where can we be more relevant? And then what do we need to do to repair relationships from there? So I think those were like the two main points. And then his final point that I was obsessed with was that rebellion is at the core of hacker identity and behavior. So like in essence, his point was to approach the system and see what it can be made to do and not what it was designed to do. So like when we're planning programs, especially within a corporate machine, how can you use your less obvious resources to make a community into something that goes well beyond like a Q&A forum? And can you impact the OSS strategy more deeply? Can you solve these bigger problems?
I really like that. What was the name of that talk?
It was so good. It was Richard Thiem's Thinking Like a Hacker in the Age of AI. It was my favorite session at all of DEF CON.
Awesome. We'll drop a link to that if the video is available. So the other question I had, as I said, is two parts to that, is from the other side of it. Why would someone join a community and go from user to more engaged? Like what are the incentives? Like why should someone get off the fence?
I think that comes back to the knowledge that we will close a loop. I think at the end of the day, we're all serving ourselves. We want to make products better and our jobs easier. So if you're a part of a community that can support that and you can have a voice in making something that you have to use every day better, those are huge reasons to do so. Also, you can meet some pretty cool people.
Yeah, there's in Drupal, and it turns out in Django as well, because they just did a Django event. We always said, come for the code, stay for the community. And I think that's what a lot of people find when they do join these communities. They get there for a purpose, and that is to hack. That is to like improve how they're using the tooling. But turns out you meet some really cool people along the way. I have some lifelong friends that I met in the very short time I was actually in the Drupal world relative to like the rest of my life. But it feels like that was a very important moments of my life that we shared some really cool stuff together.
That's awesome. That's the community dream.
All right, we're getting near the end of the show, and we have 4 questions we ask all of the guests here. Make it a consistent experience across the episodes for the listener. So we'll just start with the first one. What is your all-time favorite security tool, command line or not?
Okay, so as a non-engineer, I'm gonna have to say the phishing button in Outlook because I'm very competitive. But otherwise, you're gonna have to come. We have a Workload Identity Day 0 event coming up, which we will be talking about actual security tooling. And Dwayne, you're actually going to be presenting there, aren't you?
I'll be there.
Amazing. So we've got this like pregame that's before KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. And I think we can probably drop a registration link.
Oh yeah, we could drop that in the show notes. Absolutely.
Amazing.
What is your favorite interview question that you have ever been asked?
I had a really great one that I thought spoke to soft skills and empathy, and it was, how do you lead or inspire? And that, it was not like a part of the usual lineup. And I really thought that it brought out like, what does somebody value? So I thought that was a good one.
All right. Best advice, worst advice. What is the single best piece of security advice you're hearing out there or you've ever heard?
We have this mantra, or we did when I was on the secure cloud access team at CyberArk, and it was make loopholes more annoying than staying in policy. And I think that that is the truth still. If you're going to make what you have to do easier, then that's the dream, right? For anything cybersecurity.
And what's the worst security advice you think you've ever heard?
So I was thinking about this question. I don't have any bad, like very specific and technical security advice. So I'm going to tell you an anecdote from when I was at a brunch. So I mentioned that I couldn't do something on my work computer because like nothing on your work computer is ever really private. And my friend was like, well, just open an incognito window and you can do whatever you want.
And they're technically not wrong. Like you could open an incognito window and do whatever you want. Like that's nothing really stopping you.
That's true.
But all right. So we're here at the end of the show. Thanks for being a guest. We always like to leave the floor open for the guest to have the final say. So anything you want to tell us, plug, anything like that, feel free.
I think just I'm really excited for KubeCon this year. So if you're coming, come visit me at the CyberArk booth. I would love to meet anyone and chat all things machine identity security, and connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to talk more.
All right, we'll put those links down below. Thanks again for being here, and thanks for listening, everybody.